Deinotherium giganteum was the undisputed heavy hitter of the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, a creature so massive and biologically distinct that it stands as one of the most successful experiments in mammalian history. While the name translates to the terrible beast, this giant was actually a highly specialized herbivore that redefined the limits of the proboscidean family tree for nearly 20 million years. It did not merely inhabit the ancient forests of Africa and Eurasia. It dominated them through a radical anatomical design that prioritized raw power and high-altitude browsing. Standing significantly taller than any modern elephant, Deinotherium was a biological skyscraper, a mountain of muscle and bone that proved mammals could reclaim the mantle of giants left behind by the dinosaurs. In an era of shifting climates and emerging landscapes, this titan remained a constant and formidable presence, representing a unique evolutionary path where specialized tusks and a colossal frame created a sovereign of the prehistoric woodlands. It moved with a slow and deliberate power, serving as the monarch of a lost world where the forests were deep, and the giants were truly unparalleled in their environmental influence. The most striking feature of the Deinotherium is undoubtedly its skull, which presented an anatomical puzzle that baffled the scientific community for generations. Unlike every other member of the elephant lineage, which carries tusks in the upper jaw, Deinotherium evolved a pair of massive downward curving tusks that erupted from the tip of its lower jaw. This was not a random mutation, but a highly specialized solution to the challenges of forest survival. These tusks functioned like biological hose, curving back toward the chest in a hook-like fashion that allowed the animal to interact with its environment in ways no modern elephant can replicate. For early paleontologists, this inversion was so strange that they initially struggled to even place the bones in the correct orientation, with some early reconstructions even suggesting the tusks were attached to the top of the head. Modern researchers have concluded that these inverted tusks were the ultimate tools for a high-level browser. Deinotherium likely used them as heavy-duty hooks to pull down tall, leafy branches that were far beyond the reach of its trunk alone. Furthermore, the downward curve and the powerful neck muscles of the animal allowed it to strip bark from tree trunks in long, continuous sheets, accessing the nutrient-rich layers beneath that other herbivores ignored. Some evidence even suggests these tusks could have been used to anchor the animal's head while it fed on aquatic vegetation, or to dig for deep-seated tubers during seasonal droughts. The skull also featured a remarkably large nasal opening, signifying a massive and muscular trunk that worked in perfect coordination with the lower tusks. This integrated harvesting system made Deinotherium a precision feeder, capable of processing vast quantities of forest foliage with a level of efficiency that sustained its multi-ton body for millions of years. This skull was essentially a specialized, heavy-duty harvesting tool that turned the lower jaw into a primary instrument of survival, allowing the creature to dominate the canopy without the need for complex dental grinding mechanisms found in later grazers. To carry the weight of its specialized head and massive appetite, the body of Deinotherium was a masterpiece of structural engineering. The largest species reached shoulder heights of approximately 4 to 4.5 meters, towering over even the most legendary modern elephants. Its limbs were thick, pillar-like columns of dense bone, designed to distribute a massive weight that reached a staggering 12 tons in fully grown males. This is nearly double the mass of a modern African elephant, which typically weighs only about 6 tons. This colossal scale required a skeletal alignment that was perfectly vertical, ensuring that the force of gravity was channeled directly through the bones rather than relying solely on muscle strength to maintain a standing posture. Supporting this mountain of flesh meant that every step was a calculated move of biological logistics. Because of its sheer volume, Deinotherium also faced the massive challenge of internal heat management. A body of this volume produces immense heat through digestion and movement, but its surface area is relatively small compared to its mass. This phenomenon creates a thermal struggle where the animal must find ways to dump heat or risk internal damage. To survive this hot problem, these giants utilized several biological strategies to manage their temperature. Much like modern elephants, they likely possessed large, vein-rich ears that acted as biological radiators, dumping heat into the air as the animal flapped them to create airflow. Furthermore, it is widely believed that these giants experienced a total loss of hair as they reached such extreme sizes. Thick fur is a great advantage for a small mammal, but for a multi-ton giant, it would be equivalent to wearing a heavy parka in a sauna. To further regulate its temperature, Deinotherium would have spent a significant portion of its day in mud baths. This created a layer of evaporative cooling that protected its sensitive skin from the sun and lowered its core temperature effectively. This combination of massive scale and specialized cooling systems made it a perfectly adapted giant for the productive environments of its time. Deinotherium was a true globalist of the prehistoric world, expanding its reign from its ancestral home in Africa across the vast expanses of Europe and Asia. For nearly 20 million years, its deep, rhythmic footsteps were a constant feature of the Old World's woodlands. These giants likely lived in sophisticated matriarchal family groups, where knowledge of the landscape and survival techniques were passed down through generations. For an adult Deinotherium, the world was a safe and predictable place, because its sheer size and the power of its hoe-like tusks were a sufficient deterrent to any predator. There were no carnivores in the Miocene or Pliocene, not even the largest saber-toothed cats, that could hope to bring down a healthy 12-ton monarch. The ecological impact of Deinotherium was profound. As a landscape architect, it shaped the structure of the forests by creating clearings and paths that allowed sunlight to penetrate the canopy, fostering a diverse undergrowth that supported thousands of smaller species. They were the primary drivers of nutrient cycling in their ecosystems, consuming massive amounts of vegetation and redistributing it across the landscape. This was a slow-paced, high-energy life of constant foraging and social interaction. Because they were K-strategists, they invested heavily in the survival of very few offspring, ensuring that each calf received years of protection and education within the herd. This social cohesion made the Deinotherium lineage resilient against local environmental shifts, allowing them to remain the undisputed monarchs of the forest for an incredible span of geological time. They were the ultimate proof that a specialized diet and a social structure could maintain dominance across 3 continents for millions of years. The reign of the terrible beast finally began to crumble as the world transitioned into the cooler, more volatile Pleistocene epoch. The primary culprit in their decline was a slow and relentless shift in global climate that fundamentally altered the vegetation of the planet. The humid, lush forests that provided the massive caloric intake required by Deinotherium began to shrink, replaced by vast, open grasslands and savannas. This was a world for which Deinotherium was not designed. It was a specialist of the canopy, and its teeth were built for soft, leafy foliage rather than the tough, abrasive grasses that were now dominating the landscape. Compounding this habitat loss was the emergence of more adaptable competitors. Early mammoths and other elephant relatives were developing high-crowned teeth and sophisticated digestive systems that allowed them to thrive on a diet of grass. These newcomers could cover vast distances across the open steppes, a task that was energy prohibitive for the forest-bound Deinotherium. As the woodlands fragmented into isolated pockets, the population of these giants became increasingly disconnected. they were unable to find enough food to sustain their massive 12-ton bodies, and the shrinking forests could no longer provide the security they needed to raise their young. By approximately 1 million years ago, the last of the hoe-tusked titans vanished from the record, leaving the world to the grazers of the plains. It is a sobering reminder that even the most powerful titans can be brought down by a changing world and a more adaptable competitor. Deinotherium remains one of the most significant and unique entries in the history of paleontology, a creature that proves evolution is never satisfied with a single solution for survival. From its bizarre downward-facing tusks to its pillar-like limbs, it was an animal that stood outside the conventional blueprint of the elephant family. Its 20-million-year success story is a testament to the power of ultimate specialization, showing how a radical change in anatomy could lead to continental dominance. For anyone working in the field of prehistory, Deinotherium serves as a vital reminder that the ancient world was far more diverse and unpredictable than we often imagine. It was a mountain that walked, a titan that helped shape the very forests of our past. And although it is gone, its legacy lives on in the massive fossils that continue to challenge our understanding of the limits of mammalian life.